Hi, I'm Dan, one of the pros from the Purple Golf Academy, and today we're going to take a look at the swing of US Open champion Graeme McDowell. Now, if anyone out there would like some help with their game, please come along to our website and we can offer you a swing analysis against a top professional for just $19.99. So GMac, he's had a great last 12 months. He won the US Open last year, he won the Ryder Cup for Europe, he beat Tiger in the Chevron, and this year he's had some good finishes, notably last week at the Players where he went very close. So let's have a look at his swing and see what we can learn from GMac's action. It's one of those swings that probably on the face of it looks a little bit unorthodox, and a lot of people would say it's not a classic action, but there's some things that he does in his swing which really help him hit the ball very consistently. So it's probably a much better swing than it actually looks at full speed. So we're going to take a look under the covers today and see what goes on in there and makes GMac so good. So let's take a look at his action from down the line first of all. And the first thing to say about Graeme is that he's got a very strong grip, and that means when he looks down at the club, both hands are turned to the right. Now that is unconventional, and it does cause Graeme to make some compensations through his swing. So we'll have a look at those in a moment. Apart from his grip, it's a model setup. He's very much on the balls of his feet, nice and athletic, good bit of knee flex in there. He's got his spine nicely out over the ball, and some nice room for his arms to swing there. Doesn't look cramped, it looks nice and relaxed, nice and athletic and ready to go. So good posture. And the other thing that Graeme does very well at address is he gets his joints set up nicely, ready to make a good turn. Now by that I mean that he's got his hips, his forearms and his shoulders all setting up to point slightly right of the target, and his feet as well. Now if you imagine that Graeme's aiming at the middle of the green up here, which is somewhere around about there, and you can see all his major joints are aligning slightly to the right of the target, and what that means is it allows Graeme to make a lovely full turn in his backswing, and we're going to see that in a moment. If you set up with your joints aiming to the left of the target, you'll find it's very difficult to make a good turn, and you're more likely going to tilt in your swing and be a lot less powerful. So it's a very advisable thing to just get those joints set up aiming a little bit to the right of the target. That'll really help you make a good turn in your backswing. Okay, so let's take a look at Graeme's takeaway. And what we're going to notice here is straight away off the ball, his club goes a little bit underneath this original plane line, and the hands come in towards the body and the club comes in as well. And the reason for that is because Graeme makes a very, very strong early turn with his shoulders and his body. Now if you just see that chest, it just opens up straight away off the ball, turns to the right straight away. It's a very strong turn, which I actually like. But because of that strong grip, Graeme's right arm stays very much on top of the club here, and that's why that club tracks just so much under plane. So body action wise, I think it's very, very good indeed. He really turns his body strongly. He turns the hips, gets nicely into this right side, and it's an excellent body action. But he does get the hands quite deep behind him. Now this position here, this halfway back position, you can see his hands here are towards his back. Conventionally they'd be in the middle of the chest by this point. So his hands are quite deep, and you can see that club shaft there by halfway back has got quite steep and quite kind of almost behind him at this stage. So it's quite interesting. You know, you've got an excellent body action, but a slightly unconventional position with the arms there. And what we're going to see as we take it up to the top and back down is the way that tracks down in a very different manner. Now by halfway down you can see that club shaft here is matching up more or less to the original shaft plane he had at address, and his hands are now back in the middle of his chest. It's quite an unusual action for a top player, this, for Graeme. I'm just going to take this back now to halfway back and show you how he does that. So really from this halfway back position, his hands kind of work almost up and then out and over the top, so it's quite an unusual action. He almost throws the hands up and out. Just see that now. So the hands going up, and then they come out in front of him more. Now most players would actually shallow the backswing, but Graeme steepens the backswing. It's a product of where his club was at halfway back, and that strong grip. You can see at the top of the backswing here, you can see that kind of arching of the wrist there. It's very, very curled, and that club face a little bit shut, and that's very much a product of his strong grip. And I think the reason Graeme works those arms out in front of him, obviously, is so that the club doesn't come in too much behind him in the downswing. But it's quite an unusual little move that he has there, and it's why it looks a little bit unusual at the top of the backswing. Because it's coming from very deep, and because of that unusual grip. But you can see at the top of the backswing, very much short of parallel, so he's got the club very much in control. A nice short arm swing, and that again helps him keep the arms in front of the body. But just quite an unusual move there from Graeme. From that steep, deep position halfway back, hands go up and forward, and then almost a little bit over the top. But of course, then bang! You get, like all top players, he gets that club into a great slot, right on plane, and you can see this delivery position here, superb. The club shaft right back on plane, the hands right back in the position where they started from, and from there he can just release that club right down the plane line. It's very interesting because Graeme's swing at full speed looks like one that would hit very much a draw. He looks very drawy. But actually, if you look at this position here, he's bang on plane, and as he releases the club, he really doesn't roll the wrists and doesn't release the club at all. So actually, Graeme's going to hit this very much down his target line with very little side spin. So actually, he's a very straight hitter of the ball, Graeme. I think he favours a slight draw, but he can hit the ball left to right, and certainly that is not underneath that approach. He's not under plane there, so he's going to predominantly hit the ball quite straight. So it just goes to show that a swing at full speed can be quite deceptive, and the look of the swing can be quite deceptive. I think Graeme's through swing, which his hands come up quite high because he doesn't release the club, makes it look very much like he's going to hit the draw, but the reality is somewhat different. Now I just want to take this back and show you Graeme's body action, because I think it's something that everyone can learn from. You know, he's got an unusual arm action, but his body action is fantastic, and I think everyone could learn from this. So I'm just going to take him up to the top of his swing here. Now what I want you to notice here is the way that his right hip has worked back behind its starting position. Now I've marked these two vertical lines here are the starting position of his backside and the starting position of his knees, and you can see here at the top his right hip has moved almost further away from the ball than it started, and that is a product of this good strong hip turn, good strong wind up in the backswing, and he's really into his right side at the top. So that's something which is excellent to learn from, and that helps Graeme be very balanced at the top and very powerful. Now I want you to look at the way he unwinds his body. Now a lot of players will work their lower body out towards the ball, and that makes it quite cramped in the impact zone. What Graeme does is rotate his body towards the target, and you'll see that his knees will work inside this starting line as he works into the ball. So he fires his lower body towards the target rather than towards the ball, and you can see there he's got his knees inside this initial knee line. What that does is it allows Graeme to drop that club onto plane and keep his upper body nicely out over the ball. You can see here his head is still up against this starting line, and that is proof that he's maintained his posture there, and he's maintained plenty of room to fire that club into the ball. If you have a look at your own swings and many amateur swings, you'll find that the knees have shot out towards the ball and the spine angle will have straightened by this point. And that's something that makes the swing more complicated and the release more complicated. But with Graeme here, he unwinds his body to the left and keeps his knees inside that starting line to keep plenty of room there for the arms to fire. So that's setup and body action. Very, very good from Graeme, something that all you guys at home can learn from. So let's take a look at his swing from face on and see what there is to note from face on. Now, the first thing again to say, you can see here the very strong grip that Graeme employs. Both hands turn very much to the right on the club there, and that, as we've already seen, does have quite a strong impact on his swing, but there's so many things that Graeme does well. The first of those is this setup, which we've talked about, but here you can see other good features of his setup. Now his hips here are very well forward. his left hip is out over his left toe, and his right hip is well inside his right heel there. That is really, really good, especially with the longer clubs, because you really want to get that good turn in the backswing. Now, if that right hip is back over the right heel here, and the left hip's back, it makes it very difficult to turn in the backswing, and you'll tend to rock off the ball and tilt to the top of the backswing, and it's not going to be as powerful. So excellent tip there is to get those hips nicely forward at address. That's really going to help you with your turn and your wind up. Another thing that we've talked about with Graeme, but you can see it here, is the way he sets his joints at address. So his left hip and his left arm here and his left shoulder are all above the right. And that again makes it very, very easy for Graeme to turn strongly in the backswing. So that's another excellent tip for you guys at home. A lot of things about the setup that make such a difference to the swing, but if you can get the joints of the right side of the body set below the left and aiming a little bit to the right, and the hips nice and forward, that really will promote a lovely turn in the backswing. Okay, so let's have a look at Graeme's takeaway. And what we're going to see here is the way that he really gets that strong shoulder turn. You can see here by halfway back, he's almost got a full shoulder turn in there, and the club's only gone a short distance, and you can see the way those hips are starting to wind up very nicely. So that's a good strong early turn there from Graeme. Now as we take the club up to the top, you're going to see it's a very, very short arm swing, as we've already seen with Graeme. Those arms don't get anywhere near above his head, and that club shaft doesn't get anywhere near parallel, and that enables Graeme to keep the arms in front of his body during his downswing. But again, you can see here the way those hips are nicely wound up and ready to fire towards the target. You get that sense here with Graeme's body that the lower half is angled nicely forward here at the top of the backswing, and the upper body is angled nicely back. And that really is something that you want in your swing. You really want to wind up nicely behind the ball, because from here Graeme's lower half can fire towards the target and unwind and really be nice and powerful in that downswing. So as we start down here, I'm just going to mark Graeme's left hip at the top, and you'll see just how much it works towards the target as we start down. He really does start his downswing from the ground up, which all good players will do. And he gets that left hip nice and forward there as he starts down, and he's unwinding his lower half all the time here. And you can see here as he gets down to impact just how forward his left hip is there. So that hip has moved forward a good 5 or 6 inches from the top of the backswing, and you can see just how strong and posted that left side is. His left hip is very much it's as forward as his left knee there, which is proof that he's unwound his lower body and unwound it towards the target rather than out towards the ball, and that gives him plenty of room there to get the club down in front of him. So excellent shift with the lower body there. It's a very, very powerful move from Graeme. So that's something everyone can learn from. Now as a result of that funky arm action, you can see his head makes an unusual move here. It moves significantly back. You know, his head has moved back a good 6 or 7 inches there, which is quite unusual, and that's a product of the way Graeme's arms move and due to his unusual grip. But what he does do is he's able to get these hands very much not in front of the club shaft here at impact. Those hands are very, very forward there, which helps him to really compress the ball impact. And you'll see just through impact here just how much he maintains that angle with the arms there and doesn't really release or rotate the club at all through impact. So that shows you just how square that club is going to be through impact. With a lot of players you'd see a lot more rolling and flicking of that club through impact, but with Graeme, very strong club face through impact, which is again helping him keep the ball very, very straight. So very interesting swing, a lot of good things in there, an unusual grip and a slightly unusual arm swing, but that body action of Graeme's, the way he unwinds excuse me, to the target, very, very strong action and something everyone at home can learn from. So I hope you guys find that very interesting, and there's some things there you can take into your own swings. And again, if you need any help with this swing, please join us at purplegolf.com/academy, and we'd be happy to give you some help.